So thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Frank Myers. I'm Executive Director for the Board of Medicine. I'm here today on behalf of DC Health to kind of do a little bit of a walkthrough of sorts of the new renewal system that DC Health has implemented, starting with the Board of Medicine, but that will expand to the other professions regulated by DC Health. As many of you may already be aware, DC Health, and through the Health Regulation and Licensing Administration, regulates many, if not most of, or all of the health professions here in the District of Columbia. The Board of Medicine is just one of the many boards. There's the Board of Nursing as well as the Boards of Allied and Behavioral Health. To help kind of bring DC Health into the modern age of sorts, we have been working on a updated and streamlined online licensure portal. This is going to be a multi-phase project. The first phase is renewals. And nurses went through kind of an early iteration of that renewal, and based on some of the issues identified in feedback, that was taken and used to develop the physician renewal, which we hope our licensees are enjoying the experience and working through it. I can say that as of today, before we got here, we had a little over about 3,000 licensees that have already renewed, which when you look at our total number is not a huge portion, but historically at this time of the year is actually pretty good renewal wise. So we're pretty excited how things are going. And so I'm going to go into these slides real quick and kind of give you guys an overview. I don't know, Robert, will we have time for questions at the end, or should we have people ask as we go through? Or
let's take some questions at the end so that way you can get through your entire presentation, because I do know that you have some information at different parts of the slides that might answer some common questions.
Sure. All right. Well, let's start. We start every slide with a little bit about the Board of Medicine and a kind of make sure that our listeners understand what the role of the Board of Medicine is. Pretty much all of the boards here, our number one goal is public protection. And this is outlined in our mission statement, which is to protect and enhance the health, safety, and well-being of District of Columbia residents by promoting evidence-based best practices in health regulation, high standards of quality care, and implementing policies that prevent adverse events. So that's our mission statement, and that's the lens through which we do what we do here at the Board of Medicine. This is a quick organizational chart. I'm not going to dig too deep in it. As you see, there's a lot going on there, but the main thing is, if you'll see in the bottom left corner of the screen are the various boards under the Office of Health Professional Licensing Boards. Those are all the boards that license the individual licensees. There you see myself with the Board of Medicine as well as the Board of Chiropractic, and then there's the other various offices here in DC Health. Here's a quick outline of the board's authorities. We get a lot of questions about why does the board do why does the board do it this way? Why does it do it that way? Why doesn't it do it this way? And the answer to that is, it's many times is what we do what the law mandates us or what it allows us to do. The board as an administrative agency can only do those things the law provides for. And so here you see the laws. Everything comes from the statute. This will be my medical reference as a layperson here. Is the statute kind of serves as the bones of what we can do, and the regulations serve as the muscle that helps this regulatory body move. So we license several professions here under the Board of Medicine. That includes physicians, both MDs and DOs, acupuncturists, physician assistants, anesthesiology assistants, naturopathic physicians, surgical assistants, polysomnographers, which I clearly can't spell or speak that, and then trauma technologists. Our board composition is 15 members total. 10 of those members are physicians, 4 of those members are consumers, and then 1 slot is for the director of the Department of Health, who is currently Dr. LaQuandra Nesbitt. However, Dr. Nesbitt, being as busy as she is and as all the boards that there are, she can't serve on them all, so she has a designee that she points, which for the Board of Medicine is Dr. Preetha Iyengar. And there you see the current membership of the board. The board is currently short 3 physician members, so if anyone knows any physicians that are interested in applying to serve on the board, they would apply through the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments, which we affectionately call MOTA. They have a website that you can go on, and we encourage individuals that are interested to either that are interested in serving to go to their website and apply, but also to come to our board meetings. The board meets once a month, the last Wednesday of every month. We have an open session in which we discuss various items that are of interest to our stakeholders and to the public. That can include proposed legislation from the City Council, regulations that are being worked on here at DC Health, or general policies or programs that are being pushed here at the local level. Here's kind of the tree of sorts for the Board of Medicine. There again, you see all the professions under the Board of Medicine, but then you see that go into the subparts of the three avenues that the board focuses on: the application process, the disciplinary process, and the education process. What we're here to talk about today is really the application process, and specifically the renewals. Here's a little more about the general powers and duties of the board. I won't go into too much detail, but really the powers are to issue licenses, and then once a license is issued, to enforce the requirements of the HORA, which is a statute that it's the Health Occupations and Revisions Act, which applies to our health professionals. Because once you do get licensed, the practitioner still has to practice within acceptable standards of care, and they need to make sure that they are practicing safely and not harming any of our residents or visitors here in the district. So the board not only determines qualifications, but then we review complaints and determine what follow-up, if any, is necessary. Here's some quick facts and stats on licensure as of September of 2018. The board receives about 2,000 applications a year. We license in total about 15,215 licensees, of which you can see a large majority is our physician population, makes up about 12,000 almost licensees. We have 1,600, almost 1,700 MTLs. Those are our medical training licenses. We have 423 MTRs. Those are also training licenses, but those are short-term rotational licenses, and those are up. You can see quite a bit from what our numbers were in February 2017. More than 90% of our applications are approved within 72 hours. And what we mean by that is completed applications. I should emphasize that. We have a bifurcated process here at the district, meaning that once an application is received by us, it first goes through what we call the processing center. And that center handles the applications for all professions here at DC Health, whether it be a physician or a nurse or an acupuncturist or a physical therapist. They go through, they take the initial applications. They also take any supplemental documents that may come in from another sender, such as a licensure verification. They match those documents together, and once they see that all the necessary documents have been received, they then forward that on to my staff here at the Board of Medicine, who, once they have a completed application, reviews it to determine qualifications are met, and then, if so, we can actually grant the license. And we get a lot of questions about that. Does a license application have to go to the full board? And the large majority of them, no. In fact, less than 10% of applications go before the board for additional review. The board has outlined, basically given delegated authorities to myself and my staff, that if certain qualifications are met and there's nothing that warrants further board review, such as maybe a positive criminal background check, then staff can go ahead and approve those applications. Here's some facts and stats about discipline. We get about 100 to 150 cases a year. We issue 80 orders. Various letters of concern. Letters of concern are just that. They're letters that are sent that say the board is concerned with a certain activity. We may not think it rises to the level warranting any kind of formal action, but that we encourage you as a practitioner to take steps to remediate that concern and prevent any future issues from occurring. There you see there are common infractions are failure to comply with CME, poor record keeping, boundary issues, supervision of unlicensed personnel, standard of care, and communication issues with patients. I would say communication issues with patients and poor record keeping tend to be two of the biggest hand-in-hand issues. Good customer service and good record keeping will resolve 90% of your issues, just from what we see. Here's a little information about duty to report. There is a duty to report And a lot of times, this does relate to renewals because a lot of times physicians will report to us at the time of renewals that some action may have been taken against them or that something happened in the last year. But under the existing duty to report statute, a healthcare provider as well as a licensee, physician licensed by the board shall report within 60 days of the occurrence of any of the following: notice of a judgment against them in a medical malpractice suit, or disciplinary action against them by a healthcare licensing authority of another jurisdiction. But there's also actually a requirement on the healthcare provider, the employer, to report to the district, both the District of Columbia and to the board. So we always take this as an opportunity to remind our licensees that the duty to report is actually ongoing. It's not something that should only be done at the time of renewals. It really needs to be done under law no less than 60 days or even sooner for the actual healthcare facilities. So here we are at the renewals, the meat and potatoes of today's presentation. The renewals are biannual, as our licensees I'm sure know by now. That means they happen every 2 years. All professions under the Board of Medicine are renewing at the same time. I've gotten the question, why do you do them all at the same time? Why don't you spread them out and make it a little bit easier on your staff? And what we have to remind people, as I mentioned earlier, is that the Board of Medicine is under DC Health. And so a lot of the resources that the Board of Medicine uses are actually DC Health resources. That's staff, that's personnel, that's IT resources. And so while it may seem a lot that the Board of Medicine is renewing at the same time, we're actually renewing at a different time than other boards and other professions in those boards are renewing. So we are staggering things, but we stagger them by board. This year, this process is exclusively online. In the past, the renewals have been focused to be online, but we have allowed for individuals to renew on occasion via paper renewal. That is no longer the case. We do not allow paper renewals. It is a purely online function. The major components of the renewal, kind of a 7-phase component. There's the demographic information, which we also reference sometimes as the physician profile. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. That's demographics, personal information, address, name, etc. We ask screening questions. Those are questions designed to screen for responses or issues of concern. There's the clean hands, the continuing education, the workforce survey, the criminal background check, and of course at the very end is the pay the fee. And we'll go into more details as we go on through this slide. What you see here before you is the login portal. As I mentioned just a second ago that, we've done online renewals in the past, but this is a new online system. And so there's been some confusion from some of our licensees and some of our applicants that may, for whatever reason, still have the link to the old renewal system, because it does still exist, but it exists for the other professions outside the Board of Medicine. The Board of Medicine has its own portal, and this is the portal that you should be seeing when you go to renew. And we have a link on the Board of Medicine website. We sent out email notices to our licensees to where to go to renew online. So when you get on that link, the first thing you'll see is a page that looks like this. I'm sorry, it'd actually be the previous page. I'm going to go back a slide and show you. It'll actually be a page that on the right you see there. And you'll see in the upper top, you'll see the option to log in or sign up. All of our licensees will first need to register. Even if they've been licensed with us for decades, again, because this is a new system, they will need to sign up and register with our system. And so when you click on the sign up button on the upper right hand side, that'll take you to the login portal here. On the left screen is what you'll see to register. You'll enter your first name, your last name, your date of birth, your email address, your license number, and then you'll create a password. And then you'll confirm that password that you just created. Now, this information, the first name, last name, date of birth, that needs to be the information that matches what's in our system already. So if for whatever reason you may have gone through a name change and you haven't updated those formal records with us, or you have updated those formal records with us, it needs to be the name that matches, because that's how we're verifying that you are a licensee of the board and that you are here to renew. And the same thing with the date of birth. The email address is not a field that does need to match. That is the email address we're using purely for your registration purposes. So if you've given us an email address already, that's not something that needs to match here. It could be something different. On the flip side of that, whatever email address you put in here does not update your contact information with us. This is, again, purely for registering for the website. So, for example, when you went and signed up for Facebook, you used an email address. And then you got your confirmation of sign up. That's kind of similar to what's going on here. And for those licensees that may not know their license number, I hope everybody does, but it will be on your physical license that you already have. Or you can also go to our website at dchealth.dc.gov/BOMED, B-O-M-E-D. And if you scroll down, you'll see a physician licensure lookup. You can look yourself up and see your licensure number there. So then once you've registered, you'll get a confirmation email, and then you can come back to the website. And on the right screen there, you'll see the login portal, and that's where you'll enter your email address and the password you just created, and you'll click your login button, and it'll take you to the first part of the renewal system. Now, we've had a few individuals that have had trouble logging in, trouble signing up for whatever reason. A glitch may happen. And so if that does happen, you'll see, it may be a little difficult to see on the slide right here, but there's a little red button that says contact support, or a little phrase that says contact support. Throughout this licensure system, there's contact support options. To streamline our responses and as well as our tracking, we're responding to all customer issues through that contact support function. It's an online electronic support function. It allows us to track any issues that are being reported, to address those issues in an orderly and timely fashion in which they're received, but also to identify if issues are being common and repetitive, not just to see if it's an issue or a functional glitch, but maybe it's a design element. Maybe we're getting the same questions about why I'm having trouble with this matter. It still works, but maybe we need to redesign it to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So those are the ways we're telling individuals to contact us and to go through that support function. So this is the very first page of the renewal application. This is the applicant page, what I referred to earlier as kind of the physician profile. I mentioned at the very beginning of this that this is our multi-phase project with this renewal system, with this online system. Right now we're starting with renewals, but eventually we're hoping to transition to full initial applications, as well as the functionality of the physician profile, which exists by statute, which is something that physicians can maintain information on themselves, keep it updated as time goes on, more easily update contact information, name changes, and so forth. So when you have registered and you've now logged in, you'll come to this first page and you'll actually see your information. These fields will be pre-populated. They will have all of your licensee information in there. They'll have your first name, your last name, your gender, your date of birth, your social security number, and then whatever other information we've got in there. We are asking for our licensees to put information about race and ethnicity, highest degrees held, the DEA number and NPI number. This will help us with our tracking and functionality here at DC Health, but that is information that we're asking from our applicants that will be blank at the time you get in there. Once you are finished with that part, you'll click on the bottom right hand of the screen, which will say Save and Continue, to go on to the next page. But before we go on to the next page, I want to emphasize that Save and Continue button. You see right in front of you that there's multiple tabs. Right now we're looking at the Applicant tab, but then there's the License tab, the Address tab, the Screening Questions, and so forth. And so each tab is a portion that needs to be completed before you can submit your application. And we understand that physicians are obviously busy people, and you might start the application, but you may not be able to finish it in one sitting. And so you're able to save your progress at any point in the application by clicking the Save and Continue button at the bottom right-hand screen. The system does not, however, automatically save after a few minutes. So for those of you that have experience working, in Microsoft Word or other similar, document platforms, programs, you realize, hey, this document gets automatically saved after every few minutes. This system does not do that. The system will not save until you click the Save and Continue button. So if you have filled out an entire page and you don't click the Save and Continue button, it'll save everything you may have done in the previous tabs, but you need to make sure before you're done, you click that Save and Continue to move forward. And you also, on that issue, you need to make sure that it goes to the next page, because sometimes an individual will say, I clicked Save and Continue, but we may have required a mandated field. For example, a screening question has to be responded to, and you didn't provide a response. Well, if you don't provide a response, you can't save and continue, so whatever you've done on that page may not get saved. So once you are done with the applicant information, you'll click Next, and that'll take you to license selection. And this is where you'll actually see all of the licenses you hold here at DC Health that are currently up for renewal to the Board of Medicine, as well as for those that hold controlled substances through the Pharmaceutical Control Division. Now, I need to emphasize again that these are the licenses that you hold with the Board of Medicine. There may be some individuals that, for whatever reason, hold a license with the Board of Medicine, but are also licensed with the Board of Physical Therapy or some other profession. Those licenses are not part of this system. This is only for those licenses under the Board of Medicine. So you'll see here, for example, I think the most common a lot of our practitioners will see is their physician license and then their controlled substance license. I will point the irony here of the fact that this example seems to have included a naturopathic physician and a controlled substance, which naturopaths don't have that authority. So we recognize that that maybe doesn't make this the best example, but it is there. So you'll see those licenses, and at the bottom you see a paid and active option. This is a little confusing to some of our licensees. You have to select right there. It says paid and active, but really what you're doing is you're selecting, do you want to renew your license, or do you want to place it into paid and active status? That's what you're selecting right there. So you do have to select one of those two options. Now, for those that may not be aware, you're asking what is paid and active. So the vast majority of our licensees are going to renew their license. But there are some that maybe don't practice in the district anymore, but they want to still keep their license. So those people have the option to, one, they can choose simply not to renew. And that's completely fine. It's legal. They can choose not to renew it. Their license will expire on December 31st, and that'll be the end of it. But they may one day change their mind. Maybe they do want to come back to the district. Well, if you allow your license to expire, and a certain amount of time passes, in the district it's 5 years, if you want to come back and practice again, you'll have to completely start over the application process. You will have to apply to us. You have to, reobtain your transcripts, your USMLE scores, character references, everything else that you would have done at the time of your initial license application. Or you can select to go paid and active, in which case you'll have to finish this application, the renewal application, answer the screening questions, show us your CE, everything else, but you'll pay a fee, but then your license goes paid and active. You won't have to renew it again, and you won't get an electronic license saying paid and active, but your license will be placed into paid and active, meaning that if, for example, another 5 years passes, you can come back, you pay a very small fee, you don't have to resubmit any of that documentation, transcripts. If you've been maintaining active practice elsewhere and you've maintained your CEs, we will ask for proof of the continuing education you've done. But then assuming you've done that, we can reactivate your license and go back to practice. If you've not been engaged in clinical practice, there'll be some additional hoops that you may have to jump through just to demonstrate that you are competent and still clinically safe to practice. But it is a much easier way to transition back into practice in the district. So that's an option that we offer to our licensees, and it is part of the renewal process, and it does happen at the time of renewals. So once you've selected that you want to go into renew your license, you'll click again the Save and Continue button, and that'll take you next to the updated demographics. This is where you'll choose to not only update both your home address and your primary practice location, but what you want your preferred mailing address to be. Whether you want us to contact you primarily at your home address, or you want us to contact you at your business address, it'll be one of those two. I would note that we do not accept PO boxes for home addresses. Home address does need to be your physically home address. That's not just for mailing purposes, but it's also for patient safety purposes. If we need to locate a physician, we need to know where they are. and so that we can locate them. You'll also see here we are asking and we are making it mandatory for licensees to provide us with email addresses. As part of our modernization here at DC Health, we are doing a lot of our communication through email and electronic communication. Right now, email is the primary method, but as many may be aware, with the advent of the iPhones and smartphones and apps, we're always looking at other ways and alternative methods to best reach our licensee population. And so we are asking for emails at this time. Once you've confirmed, and again, this will be pre-populated with what we have on file, so you will need to see what we have. You'll be asked to update it and put the updated correct information. And this kind of page here was cut off, but again, at the bottom, you'll see a save and continue button. And so when you're ready and you're done, you'll hit save and continue and go on to the next page, which is our screening questions. Now, these aren't all the screening questions. These are just a few samples. But the main thing I want to point out here on the screening questions is that this time this system actually allows for the upload of documentation. The vast majority of our licensees will answer no to every single one of these screening questions. They haven't been disciplined by another state. They haven't lost hospital privileges. They haven't had a substance abuse issue, so forth and so on. But for those that do answer yes, you will then be required to provide a written description in the box there about what the incident was and what occurred. And then you will also be required to upload supplemental supporting documentation related to that issue. And we've gotten some questions from individuals asking, well, what if there is no supplemental documentation? Well, and our response to that is that the nature of these questions is such that if an incident happened that does mandate the answering of a yes, so for example, if you did do something that would result in a yes answer, there is a document that goes with that. If you were arrested, there is a charging document or a case court document. If you lost your privileges, there is usually a letter, and there should be a letter from the hospital. If you were disciplined by another state, there is an order, and so forth and so on. So we do require the uploading of documents. And some people may also ask, well, okay, we can get that, but it may take some time. What do I do in the meantime? Well, the application won't let you continue until that information is uploaded. And it is designed that way on purpose because in the past we've had individuals who go through and they submit it and then they don't provide the supplemental information, and the application may stay there pending and they're unable to continue on with the process. So we want to make sure that our licensees know that their renewal application has not even been submitted until that information is in there. And so that is a mandated field. And on the note of uploading documents, and we'll get to that actually here in the next screen, which I'm just going to go to. Next is the continuing education. This year we are mandating and requiring that all of our licensees upload proof of continuing education. So all of our licensees will have to upload proof of CE. Now, there are some options when it comes to that, though. And again, I do apologize, this is kind of a little bit small, so you can't see it too well, but you'll see on the screen the listing of the various CE requirements by profession. And then below there, you'll see an attestation. And basically, and below that, you'll see an option to check one of three options. And those three options are that you'll either say, I have currently completed my continuing education. And then if that's the case, you'll have to upload documentation right now showing that you've done your CEs. Or you'll choose that I will have completed the required continuing education by December 31st. And if you choose that option, you will not have to upload documents right now, but you will have to come back and provide us that documentation by December 31st. And you can actually do that by when this application is completed and submitted, you can go back to the web portal, you can log in, and there'll be an option to upload supplemental documents. And that's the case for any document. You may submit something and realize, oh, I wish I should have also submitted this document. You can go back into the system and at the beginning log in and upload documents through a feature that is visible at the beginning. And then there's a third option for continuing education, which for our first-time renewals and for various other reasons that you are exempt from continuing education. Now, we've had a few of our licensees state that they've had problems uploading documents. We have been telling individuals to make sure before they even start the renewal process to have all the relevant documents saved, scanned, and ready for upload. But we've had, and usually in PDF format would be the acceptable way to do that. But we've had some that say for whatever reason the system isn't taking the PDFs. So when it comes to continuing education issue, if that is the issue for you, we've been instructing our licensees to, for the time being, just to say, I will have it completed by December 31st. So that way the application can at least be completed and submitted, and our IT department is aware of the issue and they're looking into it. But that's one of the things that we've noticed with a very small minority. We think it has related to security settings from the user side, but it is something we're aware of and something we're looking at. We've also been getting questions about what kind of documentation are we looking for when it comes to continuing education? What are people wanting? What is DC Health wanting? What is the board wanting? And so what we've been telling individuals is we'll accept, we're not wanting the actual agendas or educational materials that were provided. What we're looking at is the actual, or wanting is the actual certificate of completion, which would say the number of hours you were awarded. Or for those that may be board certified, many of your certifying boards and certifying bodies provide what they're called CE transcripts that will outline all the courses you've taken, the number of hours provided, and in many cases who awarded those hours. We will accept those CE transcripts as well. And the last thing I'm going to note on the CE before moving on is that while we are mandating upload of all CEs, we're still doing a random audit of our professions. So we're not auditing all 15,000, we are mandating it, but this will allow us to more easily go through and review those audits, but also by seeing that if everyone has uploaded, they're aware and they acknowledge that they've had to upload the CEs and they've had to do the CEs, which in the past we've had some issues with. So that is how we're addressing those issues now. Here are, this is the first slide of many regarding the various continuing education requirements. Since the majority of our licensees are physicians, I'll go through those specific requirements, which are 50 hours of continuing education every 2 years. So for this renewal cycle, that means from January 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2018. And then those 50 hours have to include 3 hours in the subject of HIV/AIDS, 2 hours in the subject of LGBTQ cultural competency, and at least 1 course in the subject of pharmacology. So we've gotten a lot of questions about what that 1 course in the subject of pharmacology is. Why does that new requirement exist? And our first response is that's not actually a new requirement. It is an requirement that's been in existence for some time, but for whatever reason, before my time here at the board, wasn't something that was emphasized. And I think a large part of that reasoning was actually that many courses already covered the pharmacology component, and so it was just accepted as part of the normal 50 hours that physicians were doing. Obviously, with the rise in the opioid epidemic and other similar issues, it was decided to reemphasize that as still a requirement, that the pharmacology component is a requirement of the physician renewal. You'll also notice, though, that says 1 course, while every other one says the number of hours. We're just saying 1 course in pharmacology. That means that it can be part of a course that already exists. It can be a small portion of that course, but as long as it substantively addresses the issue of pharmacology, it'll be sufficient. It can also be something that is in 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or not. We've also gotten questions from applicants, well, what if I found a course that combines HIV/AIDS with LGBTQ with pharmacology? Could I do that? And then on its face may sound like a lot, but actually there is, for those that may be aware, there's the PrEP treatment for gay, lesbian, bisexual individuals to help address the prevention of HIV/AIDS. So depending on the coursework, that could feasibly address all those issues and kind of get, as they say, 2 birds with 1 stone. But as with any course, the responsibility is ultimately on our licensees to ensure that what they take does meet the requirements. So we are happy to try and answer what we can, but we do not pre-approve courses. Our main thing is making sure that if you're going to take a course, that you ensure that it is AMA approved or AOA approved, that it's either approved by the Medical Society or that it's a PRA equivalent coursework. And then below that, you see the requirements for physician assistants. Next is surgical assistants, anesthesiologist assistants, and acupuncturists. And all this information, and there you see polysomnographic technologists, technicians, and trauma technologists. And all this information is available on our website. It also went out in our initial email blast, our newsletter, and I believe in our physical mailers as well. Here's a little bit more information about the HIV, AIDS, and LGBTQ requirements. And again, as of the 50 hours, 2 hours had to be in the subject of LGBTQ cultural competency. We realize this is a new requirement for our licensees, so here you see some resources. These links are on our website, but one resource, and these I believe are both free. I know the LGBT Health Education Center is free, and I believe the Human Rights Campaign Foundation is free. But these are links that will take you to those programs where you can register and take the courses, and those do meet the requirements for the board. They are not sponsored or put on by DC Health, but these are just some options that we found out there and that are available to our licensees. And then for those physicians and physician assistants who need to complete 3 hours of CE in the subject of HIV/AIDS, we've got some additional resources on our website through dchealth.dc.gov that will link you to some courses that our sister agency, not our sister agency, but our sister administration, HEPRA and others have put on. There's some courses available through there. And while we're discussing this topic, I want to also address many of our licensees have been getting in the mail notifications or advertisements for continuing education. Some of them may look like they're coming from DC Health, and I will say that DC Health does not send out such mailers. We do not send out advertisements for continuing education. We may send out something, an email blast about potential courses or things in the local district. But when it comes to webinars that are charged or something like that, we do not sponsor that. We do not advertise for that. We do not send that. It doesn't necessarily mean that those documents and those programs aren't legitimate programs. They may be, but we just want our licensees to know that those are not DC Health programs. They're not sponsored or put on by DC Health. Any program that was to be put on or sponsored by DC Health would come directly from us, either through our newsletter or through our email communication. We do not work with any third-party CE programs or companies. Here's the exact wording of the pharmacology component. This is just here as an FYI, but one of the big FYIs there is that the program, the continuing education requirement for the practice of medicine includes instruction on pharmacology, which shall be evidence-based, provide physicians with information regarding the cost-effectiveness of pharmacological treatments, and then most importantly, not be financially supported by any pharmaceutical company or manufacturer. So again, this is just, again, the requirement of the pharmacology component. There's no hourly requirement. Many of the courses we've found that physicians take, at least one of the courses that physicians take when trying to get their 50 hours almost always touches upon the pharmacology requirement. But for those that may not have taken a pharmacology course, there are free CE options available via DC Health's Center for Rational Prescribing. This is also known as what's called DCRX. The Pharmaceutical Control Division puts this program on. There's a link to the website on the slide, and again, the information on our website. But if you want to, all licensees of the board, or in the district actually, the system is available, this option is available to them for free. So you would go to that link, which would take you to the DC government website. And once you're at the DC government website, you would click on another link, which would take you to GW, who is putting on all these programs. And there you see the code to use to access. You'll have to register, and you'll use the code DCHCP. And once you've registered, you'll have a slew of courses available to you in the focus on pharmacology that you can take that will satisfy the pharmacology component, as well as maybe other CE requirements or CE hours that you've not yet completed. And this is a resource that's available at all times throughout the year. I'm not sure how often it gets updated, but there are courses covering a large number of issues on topics that are related to pharmacology. So next up is everyone's favorite part of the renewal, the workforce survey. I believe this is about I want to say the 5th or 4th year that the workforce survey is done. It's the 2nd survey that I've participated in since joining DC Health. But for those that may not be aware or new to the district, the workforce survey is a survey designed to capture just what it sounds, workforce data from our licensees to kind of get a better understanding of the state of healthcare in the district, especially when it pertains to physicians. We've always asked for general demographic information, but this year there are some questions focusing on electronic medical health records, the use of EHRs, electronic health records, as well as some information on obstetrics and gynecological coverages in the district. This data is information that's utilized by both DC Health, Healthcare Finance, and other district government agencies to kind of, again, for various data needs. This is something that we generally do not, it is not something that is public. We don't put the data itself on a website. It is used to publish a report, which is de-identified. It's just looking at, general statistics, but it is very useful in determining healthcare issues in the district. The survey is split into two parts. You can see there are two tabs so that, we realized if it was just one tab, people may not get all the way to the save and continue button, so we wanted them to do that, so it's split into two parts. This year, after you've done the workforce survey, you'll come across the criminal background check. So last renewal and many of the other renewals, criminal background checks have not been a requirement. But this year, and start not just with the Board of Medicine, but with all other professions that are to follow, criminal background checks are being mandated for renewals. This is, however, a name-based search, not a fingerprint-based search. So the benefit to our licensees is that there is nothing our licensees have to do this criminal background check other than check a box saying they agree to the criminal background check and then pay the $50 fee associated with that check. They don't have to go to any other agency. They don't have to fingerprints done. They don't have to go to some other building. Just check a box, agree to the name-based search utilizing your name, date of birth, social security number, etc., and then pay the fee. And then we in DC Health will take their process, we'll run it, and then if there are positive results that need follow-up, we will be in contact with the licensee and discuss what the next steps are. There's also an option here for a name change. This is for our licensees who've experienced a legal name change. This is not somebody that wants to change their name on their license from Francis to Frank or from Frank to Francis. This is only for legal name changes. If you've already updated your name with us, if you've updated your records with us, you won't have to do a name change here. But if you do select a name change, you'll need to put in obviously your new legal name change, your new legal name, as well as the reason for the change, and then actually the documentation that supports that legal name change. So whether that be a court order, a marriage certificate, a divorce decree, or any other similar document. Once you've done that, you'll hit Save and Continue, and that'll take you to our last slide, or our last tab of sorts, which is the Clean Hands tab. This is basically just an attestation from our applicants, and it's required of all applicants through all professions, that they do not owe DC government any money. And there's various, you see there's a big list there, but for the most part, it's that you don't owe more than $100 in fine, penalties, and fees for either civil infractions, litter control, illegal dumping, motor vehicle insurance, tickets, traffic adjudication, or taxes, or any other matters. We get a question a lot of times, well, I have a ticket, but I'm challenging it. Do I still have to say that I owe the district government money? No, if you're challenging it, you've not agreed that you owed it. You have your day in court, but if you go to court and traffic court says, no, you do owe it, then yes, you do owe the money, and you do have to provide us with what's called a Clean Hands certificate, or a copy of a payment plan from the agency acknowledging that you have entered into a payment plan with them and that you are working through that. So if you do answer yes, you'll have to provide that supplemental documentation. Here's a quick outline of the various renewal fees broken down by the professions under the Board of Medicine. Acupuncture is $290. Most of the professions are $145. We've included chiropractor here because chiropractor, the Board of Chiropractor, I'm also the head of, so this has been used for them as well. And then physicians are $500, and then polysomnographic trainees are $50. When you get through the system, one thing we didn't show there in the slides is the payment, how the payment process works. Once you've finished all the various questions, you attested to the clean hands, it'll take you to the last page, which will be the payment page. And it'll break down the fees by license type. So if you recall at the beginning, we talked about renewing your physician license and your controlled substance license. This system is combining both renewals together. So before you would have had to do your physician and then go to another thing and do your controlled substance. We've merged those together. You'll see the fees there for each one. And then you'll pay the fees and they'll give you a total for the total amount. You also see it for the criminal background check and the total amount, and you'll be able to pay it. And then once it's paid, you'll get a receipt as well as a confirmation email notifying you that your renewal has been received. And if it was approved, you'll actually get an electronic copy of your license. This year, we are not mailing out physical licenses. There are no physical licenses that will be sent. We are only sending out electronic licenses. These are PDFs of both your physician license and your controlled substance license, and they'll be sent to your email. If your license application, your renewal application is under review, you'll get an email stating as much. And then once it's approved, you'll get your digital license as well. We've also gotten questions about, well, what if I don't want to renew my controlled substance license? It says it showed both. I went through the thing, but I didn't get an option to deselect it, but I only want to select one. Well, when you actually get to the payment option, there'll be a checkbox next to each fee for each license. And for those licenses that you don't want to pay, you'll de-check it. And so that when you submit the renewal with the payment, only those licenses you've agreed to pay for and have paid for will be considered submitted and approved and go through the process for approval. And lastly, that is our address here at the District DC Health Board of Medicine, as well as our general phone line and our email address. You know, we're very proud of our renewal system, but like with anything new, there are some growing pains, and so we encourage our licensees to provide us with feedback, and we'll try to address those as quickly as we can. I want to reiterate to our licensees that we strongly encourage the use of the contact support feature when you run into an issue, whether that be at the initial login or later on the renewals. In fact, I'll go back and I want to point out to where it is. Oh, kind of went out. If you go into the renewals at some point, you'll see in the top gray bar area in the contact support button. And once you click on that, that'll give you an ability to submit a question or select the category of which you're having an issue. And so we are strongly encouraging everyone, in fact, we're requiring everyone to submit it through there. Even if you call our office, we're going to still have you submit the ticket through there first. And then if you're still having issues and you're not getting responses, we'll be happy to assist. But that is the best way for our staff and our limited resources to prioritize and address those issues as they come in. So we appreciate everyone's patience, and I thank you all for listening to me rattle on there for this period of time. And at this point, I'm happy to answer really any questions anybody might have.
So as a reminder, please use the chat box part of Zoom to ask any questions. And I will read them off. But while we're waiting for people to ask some questions, Frank, I have a couple of them for you. And I'll start with the easy one, which is what types of payments do you accept at the end of this process?
Sure. So we accept Visa and MasterCard. We do not accept American Express. So those with the black cards, unfortunately, we cannot assist you. But we do accept credit card. We are not accepting. We've gotten a few people ask, could they submit the online renewal but then send a check in? We're not accepting checks or paper submissions of any kind.
Okay. Question from the audience. It looks like the DC license lookup and DC CDS lookup sites haven't been updating with the online renewal process. Is that something that you all are aware of, and is it being worked on?
Yes, it is something we're aware of. It is something that we are working on. The licensure lookup connects to the old licensure system, so they're integrating it with the new one. I have been told that we will have it up and running by early next week. For the time being, the primary confirmation of licenses is the digital license. But once the lookup is done, we'll be sending out an email blast to our licensees to let them know that that's available. And we'll be sending out an email blast actually here shortly to give everyone a reminder to renew and give some additional updates on the system and the processes.
Great. And as a reminder, this is being recorded on November 16th. So if you're listening to this come December, then this has obviously happened in the past. I have a question here. Let's see. Having an issue with electronic submission, the system goes up to a point and then stops. We might need a little bit more information on that for the person who asked the question, if you could provide a little bit more information. Or Frank, would you rather have them go to the contact support button?
Well, I would definitely have them do the contact support button. I mean, I'm happy to try and answer what I can, but yeah, I'm going to need a little bit more information about what exactly is happening. I would say the most common thing, I'm not sure what they mean by stopping, but we've had some individuals that when they tried to Google onto the next page, it wasn't letting them move to the next page.
Mm-hmm.
And when we've kind of dug down, the reason was that there was maybe a document upload that needed to be uploaded and it wasn't actually uploaded. Mm-hmm. And so that has been something that unfortunately, regardless of the issue that's been going on, we've kind of had to have some sort of document get uploaded because it's a mandated field. And so we've been working with those applicants on a one-on-one basis to try and figure out what's going on and what's issued. But if that person has more questions, more details, I'll be happy to answer it. But first off, definitely always submit to the contact support feature so that we can get that ball rolling and try and get it resolved.
Okay, great. Next question on the list, a question about the yellow fever license question. Can you tell us a little bit more about that question?
About the yellow fever, well, for those licensees,
mm-hmm.
For those, there's a select group that has a yellow fever license with the DC Health. For those that don't have a yellow fever, there's nothing for them to, they're not to answer that question, or I'm trying to remember the specifics of it. I can't recall at the time what the specifics are, but basically, unless you have a yellow fever license, there's not really anything to answer there about if you want to renew it. It may be asking you that, it shouldn't be, but if it is, let us know. But it's not an opportunity to obtain a new yellow fever, it's just to renew an existing one.
Okay, great information. Let's take a couple more here since we're running up against time. We have a question from the audience. They have multiple physicians who completed the application and received the receipt of payment, but not the copies of the license or the CDS renewal. They did not, however, receive an email saying their application is under review. So who should they contact to get a copy of their licenses, or I guess find out more information?
So so they didn't get it. They didn't get any email. They just got the receipt, but they got no email, which is very confusing because that means the system has the correct email address, but for whatever reason didn't send them a follow-up email. So the first thing would be, again, to log back into the portal and submit something through the contact support. But they can also send an email to our general DC Gov email inbox. That'd be dcbomed@dc.gov, dcbomed@dc.gov. And then we'll walk through that and see what's going on. They can also contact our front line. We're answering questions as fast as we can. The one thing I like to emphasize to everybody, and again, it's the reason we're using the contact support, is that you saw earlier, we have about 16,000 licensees that will be renewing. I have a staff of 4. So we're going through questions and responding as quickly as we can, but we do apologize for people that may be having long wait times, but we're working as fast as we can.
Okay. So a follow-up to the question about the electronic submission stopping, it looks like the information's all been entered and that cannot proceed. So what's the best way to get to figure out what's going on in that situation?
If the information has all been entered and if you're hitting the save and continue, if it's an issue of a mandated field, what the system should be doing is that it should be going back to the top of the page and saying, like, this is a field that's not finished, taking you to it. We always ask people to double check to make sure there's not a drop-down box, there's not some sort of document uploaded that needs to be uploaded, or a missing option. Without really knowing and seeing the page and knowing a whole lot more details, like I can't walk through, but I would definitely on that page submit a contact support. You can also, if you know how to take a screenshot and send us an email with that screenshot and an explanation to that email address I just gave, and we'll be happy to see what we can do.
Okay, and we're happy to help with the screenshot if somebody needs help with screenshots. Let's see, a couple more questions here. To wrap this up, a question about a physician who's retired but wants to maintain a license. What do you suggest? Do you need the CME and the 5 specific hours of lectures if you're retired but want to maintain your license?
So right now we don't have any kind of special retired license status. We really only have an active license and an inactive license. If a physician wants to maintain a license, they're going to have to do the CE in either scenario, but they're going to have to choose either to go paid inactive or renew it. I will say the Board of Medicine, as a policy, is looking into the idea of a retired license or what we call an emeritus license. Some other jurisdictions do it. It's something we're looking at. But for this person's immediate issues, we don't have an option for that.
Okay, great. Here's a question, and I know this is something I've struggled with in my life. For uploading documents, if you go to upload a document, but you upload an incorrect document by accident, how can you go back to see what's been uploaded, or go back and delete or remove a document you've uploaded?
So right now, it won't. The system doesn't let you do that. Once it's uploaded, it's automatically saved to the server. It was something that I brought up that, sometimes you see an option, obviously, that the document is not submitted until you hit submit, but that's not the way it's designed. If there's something personal that you want removed, you can reach out to us, again, through the contact support or through the email, and let us know that, whatever document shouldn't be there, and we'll be happy to, on our side, assuming that it is not relevant, we'll be happy to remove it from our records and get rid of it. But right now, just through the functionality as it exists, it is not there. But I think that's good feedback that we could use and hopefully improve on this process in the future.
Great. While we do a last call for questions, I'll ask another one from this end. You mentioned random audits, and that being part of the process is to go through and check randomly the 15,000 licensees. Is there anything that applicants should know, certain questions or certain types of answers that would trigger an audit more than any others? Say, for example, that you're going to complete your CME by the end of the year, or any questions on the workforce survey? And is it what could potentially trigger an audit that licensees should know about?
Sure. So no responses. Originally, there was some thought given to the idea of a greater chance for an audit based on whether licensees were uploading documents now or going to finish it by December 31st. I think the reality of some of the upload issues that people have had, that's kind of negated that. So it's literally a pure random audit. Once the December 31st hits, the system will randomly pick a percentage. About, I believe for physicians, I'm going to say it's not 10%. I think I want to say it's like a 2% of our physicians that will be randomly selected. And then we will go into the system, see if they've got the CE there. If they do, we'll look at it, see if it works, and that'll be the end of it. If it doesn't, we'll reach out to the licensee and let them know. In either scenario, we'll let the licensee know that they've been selected for the random audit so that they know that this is being looked at. But there's no response to any question will trigger an audit, and more so than the others. Great.
We'll take this as the last question, and it's one that I'll answer. How do we download the sessions for future reference? And it says a nice session by Dr. Frank Myers to review again. We will have this recording available within a few days of this session, and we will make it available. I believe the Board of Medicine will have a link to it that you all are gonna, Frank, you all will have a way for people to reference this as well once we make it available. And this can certainly be accessed by participants and those who unfortunately had to miss this presentation.
Yeah, we will definitely be sharing that and distributing that. And I do want to thank Robert and the Medical Society for working with us. I know we've been in talks about maybe doing some future webinars on other topics that are of interest to our licensees. So we do greatly appreciate any opportunity to reach our licensees and share information that we think will help pretty much everyone. So again, thank you all. Thank you to the Medical Society, and we greatly thank you for taking such a beautiful weather day to be on a conference call with us.
Well, on that note, this concludes the webinar. Thank you to everybody who participated and who asked questions. Thank you to our guests. And if you have additional questions, you have our contact information. So good luck with your licenses, and everyone have a great day.